I'd just now like to introduce you to Aine, a local reporter with the Mayo News, always on hand to give encouragement and to report positively about Westport and of course its surrounding county. So I'll just hand you over now to Aine. Thank you.
One can only surmise what Grace O'Malley or Ronnie Whale, the original owner of this house, well, the castle on which its foundations are built, would say about our patron saint, Patrick, and his relationship with the pyramidal Holy Mountain that dominates the bay from which he weighed anchor back in the 16th century. This was a time when the seasonal rituals of our Celtic forebears, subsumed into the Christian narrative by evangelists like Patrick, still danced in the tapestry of hollows and hills, crannies and coves around Clew Bay. One can easily imagine that if Grace had met Patrick, she would have partaken in a sup of the crater, nurtured by his personal brewer and confessor, Meskin. And the circle of the century goes around because some of you are drinking Meskin beer here tonight. You see, Meskin accompanied him on that patrician pilgrimage along the ancient chariot route, now known as the Tóthar Fóric, to the peak of the Holy Mountain for his 40 days and nights of fasting in 441 AD. So it's reassuring to know that pilgrimages back then were not all sackcloth and ashes, penance and prayer. St. Patrick may have been busy peeling his clog dove to banish the evil birds, but he probably indulged in some ceol agus crack also. In his book, Croagh Patrick, A Place of Pilgrimage, A Place of Beauty, author and local historian Harry Hughes tells the story of how poet Patrick Kavanagh climbed the mountain for Week Sunday on July 28, 1940. After reaching the summit, Kavanagh reflects, "We are physically weary, spiritually exhilarated. Pilgrims are coming up and others going down. Now there is a slight change in the gaiety that was Westport last night. Something that is solemnity is here. And there is a sense of the dramatic. It is this sense of the dramatic which marks a difference between Croagh Patrick and Loch Derg. Loch Derg represents the meditative, hermit-like quality in Ireland's faith, but Croagh Patrick, Croagh Patrick is the glorious singing, laughing climb of an Ireland young in spirit and truth, and enthusiastic in performance. Well, there have been a plethora of seismic changes in our society, challenging both the institutions of the state and the church since Patrick Kavanagh's pilgrimage almost 80 years ago. But the great open-air cathedral that is Croagh Patrick, with its amphitheatre that looks over spectacular Clew Bay, and stretches to the edge of the horizon, and its magical world of metaphysics remains steadfast. Whether it's in wind and rain, walls of mist, or frivolous wisps of cirrus clouds, hordes of pilgrims and armies of extreme sports athletes. While its precipitous pathway may be in need of some TLC today, and while the local population deserves a better drinking water system, this great quartzite monolith continues to pierce the sky with the same majesty it did when our Neolithic forebears believed in a panoply of gods representing the moods of nature. Harry Hughes's book, published by O'Brien Press and revised and updated again this year, is an essential companion for anyone who is curious or wishes to understand the eclectic spiritual and cultural story of Croagh. Just like the Ordnance Survey maps launched earlier, Croagh, a place of pilgrimage, a place of beauty, maps the cross-millennial tale of this holy place in an accessible and engaging way. Each vignette is enhanced by photographs. It provides a detailed guide for the pilgrim or the curious visitor, whilst confirming its adjacent communities' deep connectedness over the generations. It tells the story of the stations of Lacht Banan and Relic Wirra, Garland Friday and the Pattern Day at the end of August, the phenomenon of the rolling sun depicted on the Bohe Rock and rediscovered by the late Jerry Bracken, to the archaeological discoveries of the 1990s, as well as the stories from Cromdove and Loch na Corra. Here also is the revival of the pilgrimage in 1903 by Father Michael MacDonald and the huge clerical and communal drive to build the new oratory on the summit, completed for Week Sunday in 1905. This little tome here tells it all. In conclusion, it is important to remember that just as pilgrims and visitors focus on reaching the pyramidal peak, the descent too always has a focus. And there, at the foot, is the iconic Campbell's pub, which has been a welcome watering hole for many's the penitent over the decades. Aine may have passed away in 2009, but the legacy of his warmth lives on in that pub. And in the spirit of ancient times, when Croagh was a place for éineachs and chariot racing, hurling and storytelling during the festivals of Imbolc, Bealtaine, Lunasa and Samhain, our modern-day brehons, or lawmakers, prove understanding when they grant exemptions to the local licensees to facilitate poor pilgrims who might need a hair of the dog after an early ascent on Week Sunday. Some years ago, while granting one of these exemptions, Judge Mary Devins quipped, "I'm not so sure Patrick would endorse this application." Well, we know now that if he was around these days, he may well have been the first to inhabit a high stool in Campbell's or the tavern. Well, banishing snakes is very thirsty work. Congratulations, Harry, on this new edition of Croagh, a place of pilgrimage, a place of beauty.